Hello, I'm Horace Douty in Lexington, Virginia, and each Thursday I bring you by way of YouTube a local history lesson. I have written two books of local history lessons, and the title of each book is History Lessons from a Country Church. And these books are available from Amazon and also in Lexington, Virginia, Downtown Books and the Bookery. But I encourage you, if you enjoy these history lessons, go to Horace Douty YouTube, click on like and click on subscribe, and also click on the little bell icon so that you'll be notified, and share these videos with your family and your friends. I appreciate that. Today, the title of the history lesson is General Sam Houston, from Timber Ridge to Texas. To be born in a churchyard must be a good thing. Little Sam Houston's family gave the land for the stone church just a few miles from here at Timber Ridge in the 1750s. And that church stands to this day, quarter of millennium later, still in use. Sam was born on April the 2nd, 1793, in a house only a few feet from that church door. There he grew in body and mind, learning the skills necessary for frontier living. He swam and he fished in the rushing Mill Creek below the house. With rifle and axe, he roamed the same hills that surrounded my own childhood home, although I came along much later. Sam's father was a military man and obviously taught the lad how to win wars. After the death of his father, Sam and his mother moved to Tennessee. And as they said goodbye over here across the hill at Timber Ridge, an uncle said, "I have little hope for young Sam. He's too wild." And the boy quickly responded, "Uncle, someday I will come back through here on my way to Congress." And he did just that, more than once. On the frontier of Tennessee, Sam enlisted as a soldier. His size and his strength were legendary. In battle, he was ferocious and methodical. He was elected to Congress and served with such popularity that in a few years he was elected governor of Tennessee. Then Sam took a wife, and suddenly things went bad. On his wedding night, the tearful bride blurted out an awful truth. She said, "I am in love with someone else, and I only married you because my parents insisted on my becoming the governor's wife." The lights went out in the governor's mansion, and they also went out in our hero's heart. Mounting his horse that night, the gallant governor simply rode off without a backward glance and went to live with the Indians. The crisis at the Capitol would have to be handled by lesser politicians. Sam was not coming back. But the red men loved Sam Houston. The chief of the Cherokees adopted as a son this big white man from Rockbridge and named him the Raven. Sam Houston won universal respect among all American Indians and eventually became their advocate in the United States Congress. Federal lawmakers were impressed. Here, finally, was a man of valor who knew how to deal with the Native Americans. Congress sent Sam to Texas to make treaties with the border tribes so that trading and commerce could flourish. In the years that followed, not a single treaty transacted by Sam Houston was broken, proving that Sam knew what he was doing. In 1835, Houston had become commander-in-chief of the armies of Texas during the war with Mexico. It was General Sam Houston who clearly saw how the Alamo was a death trap for Americans, and he ordered its evacuation. Sam Houston's order was ignored, resulting in the shocking death of every man there, including Davy Crockett. But the Mexican triumph under Santa Anna was short-lived. Sam Houston, with only 700 soldiers, caught up with Santa Anna's 1,800-man army and simply wiped out the Mexican troops. He lost only 31 of his own. The victory there at San Jacinto established the independency of the Republic of Texas, with Sam Houston as its first and only president. When Texas became a state, Sam became first a senator and then governor of Texas. However, Sam's life as a governor failed again. The year was 1861. Texas wanted to secede and join the Confederacy. Sam Houston flatly refused, believing that civil war in America was lunacy. Once again, the tall man moved out of a governor's mansion. General Houston married again, and this time it worked. He had 4 sons and 4 daughters, and although Sam Houston had never been a good student, preferring guns over books, his children distinguished themselves as scholars. Their dad was famous, and to this day, April 21 is a Texan holiday every year since 1836, commemorating Houston's decisive victory at San Jacinto. Portraits of Sam Houston are displayed like flags in every chamber of government, and a full-size statue stands in Austin. Houston, Texas is named for this boy from Rockbridge County. What is General Sam Houston's connection with Rockbridge and with Oxford Church? His aunt, Esther, Mrs. Jane McKee, is buried in the Oxford graveyard. His cousin, the Reverend Samuel Houston, was pastor there. Some members of our current community are relatives of Sam Houston. We are breathing right now the same valley air that made Sam Houston a great man. Your own parents and grandparents understand the vanishing traits that were instilled in young Sam. And remember, I'm talking about General Sam Houston, who came 100 years after Reverend Dr. Samuel Houston. A Scottish verse sums up the Rockbridge childhood training. And here it is. They raised them rough, they raised them well. If their feet were pointed in the paths of hell, they put in their souls the fear of God and tanned their hides with a stiff ramrod. There it is, the story of Sam Houston.